right, so let's take a look at some of the primary agents of socialization. Now, depending on the book that you're reading or the scholar that you're listening to, this list can vary. However, we're going to talk about three of the primary agents of socialization in this presentation today. And we're also going to try and capture some of the micro and macro influences that those agents have on you as an individual and on society in general. So let's get started. All right, now as I said, depending on the book you're reading or the scholar you're listening to, this list can vary. You could find a list as long as maybe a dozen of these different primary agents of socialization, but we're going to concentrate on these three: family, peers, and media. Now I want to tell you what a few of those others are before we move on. Religion is one. The government is one. The workplace is one. So the economy is one. So you can see how there are many more agents of socialization in our society than just the three we're concentrating on today. But let's take a look at these three one at a time, beginning with family. Right, the family is considered to be the primary agent of socialization, and a family environment should create emotional support by giving a child a safe environment in which to explore their emotions. Now, we know that this isn't the case for every single child in every single family. However, we're talking here at the macro level. So when we're talking about the agent of socialization that is the family, we're not necessarily talking about your family. We're talking about the institution of family. And let me explain what I mean by that. When I ask you to tell me what your family looks like, that response is going to be varied across the spectrum. However, when I ask you to explain to me what the American family is, many of you are going to tell me roughly the same thing. 2 parents, 2 children, maybe 3, 2 cars, mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, both work. We might have a dog. We live in a nice house, and so on. So we have an overarching ideal in our society of what the family is. This is our institutional understanding of family. And when we're talking about family as an agent of socialization, we're talking in that same broad kind of way. We're talking about what the elements of family are, which help to socialize that child to be a productive member of our society, or at least a quote-unquote normally socialized member of our society. So not only should the family create this emotional support, but it should also provide social control. It should tell us what is right, what is wrong, what is appropriate, what's inappropriate, what behaviors are acceptable, and what behaviors are not. And parents can do this by a variety of ways. They can use force, they can use rewards, they can use punishment, or they can use coercion. And any one of these can help to provide social controls which help that child to eventually become a well-rounded element in our society. Now, let me make something clear. When I'm talking here about social control and the use of force, I am not talking about using physical force with your child. But, for example, you may have a child where you feel like it's appropriate to ground that child by saying you must stay in your room for X days, or you're not allowed to go out this weekend. That is a type of force that many parents use to try to appropriately socialize their child. And now here's the rub, folks. If parents aren't successful, the results can be disastrous for that individual and also for society. So there's something here that we have to take note of, and that is the influence of the family. The family has been recognized in sociological research as the primary agent of socialization, meaning that it takes the front seat with regard to driving the socialization bus. But in recent years, the last maybe 20 or 30 years or so, the family has started to lose some of its footing with regard to its primary agent status. And it's losing some of that footing to these 2 other agents that we're going to talk about. And the first of those is peer groups. So In American society, peer groups are increasingly taking the place of parents as an agent of socialization. Influence of peers begins in American society around the age of 4, when children start coming into regular contact with other children. And this can be through kindergarten or pre-K. It can be a parent who regularly takes a child to the playground when they're young. It becomes stronger as the child ages and is at its strongest influence in that child's adolescent years. Now, what's interesting here is in early years, peer influence is very closely monitored by parents. Parents, generally speaking, will choose or dictate who that child can be friends with and has control over that child's exposure to other children. In later years, parents aren't as closely involved in monitoring the relationships that a child has via their peers. And while I haven't really examined the literature, I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to make a couple of assertions, theories, if you will. I'm going to theorize that the reason why parents don't spend as much time monitoring children as they age is twofold. One of those reasons is likely that they feel like if they did a good job when the child is younger, they can loosen the reins a little bit. They can give the child a little bit of responsibility to select their own peers and who to interact and socialize with. And the other thing I think probably would come out in research on this phenomena is that parents get tired as you get older. And so you may have younger siblings that require your parents' attention more so than you do. And frankly, as your parents have more children and as they begin to get older, their influence on you is going to become less intense. For most children, not for all. Peer groups as an agent of socialization also align very closely with the agent of media and with our government and economy. And this can be a very dangerous combination. In American society in particular, we are the most consumer-driven nation on earth. And so young adults in our society, via the agent of media as a socialization element, learn about the importance of buying and obtaining things. And that's also very craftily and subtly linked to our economy, which would bring us to the government as an agent of socialization. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the government and economy in this lecture, but we are going to talk about the media as an agent of socialization in the United States. So the media is increasingly becoming important to U.S. society. Daily influences on us via all different avenues of media are constant. It used to be years ago that you would pick up the newspaper every morning and read it to get your information, or you might look in textbooks for information or the occasional magazine. But today, not only do we still have newspapers, books, and magazines, which some of us rarely use now, but we also have a phone at our disposal at all times. We have tablets that we carry around with us. We have laptops and desktop computers and computers at work and computers at home and computers at school. And we have vehicles by which to transmit our every thought at the drop of a hat via Twitter, Facebook, email, and other internet resources. Now, this can be a very good thing for a society because it helps to level the playing field for all of us, so to speak. It allows those of us who may not have regular contact with, for example, higher education, to go out on the internet and find information that can help teach us about things that we otherwise may not have access to. It also, however, can be a dangerous thing for society when we seek information on sources that haven't otherwise been deemed credible or reliable or properly vetted. So we have to be careful here. One of the primary things that our media in American society does via television is socialize us to become consumers. And there are billions of dollars at stake here for our economy. One of the ways in which the media helps to socialize us to become consumers is through the concentration or convergence, if you will, of media outlets. What has happened over the last several decades in America is that fewer and fewer people have owned television. we have just a handful of very powerful people at the top who are really in control of what we get exposed to on TV and have a vested interest in making sure that what we are exposed to aligns us to be good consumers. And so the media can be a very, very dangerous agent of socialization. And it doesn't have to be like that. It could be used for very different purposes. However, this is the reality of American media today. So you can see we're scratching the tip of the iceberg here. We've talked about a couple of the primary agents of socialization: family, peers, and media. And we've talked a little bit about the micro and macro level influences that are at play with regard to helping to socialize you into the person you are in our society. I hope this helps. Take care.